always say like lovely things about Alexei always.
In this way. Over here, yeah.
Yeah, so my question was about rewriting actually. So obviously the main characters continue rewriting the film. What did you have to do during that? Were there any sort of angles that you wrote and then got abandoned?
No, the film was, we wrote it pretty quick, and it was put together very quickly, edited very quickly, and it just seemed to fall into place. I mean, the weird thing is successful things are usually quite easy to do. I've noticed the films that work you don't need to struggle too long because they write themselves, and it kind of wrote itself. I mean, we obviously worked on that. A few scenes went over and over again, but it was just an easy one to do, and it seemed, it kind of fell into place. Some of the ones you do, they're just much harder, to get. But for some reason, it was quite easy to do. I mean,
has there ever been words from Al Pacino about your portrayal of him?
I think he does know about it. Yeah.
There was another question. There we go. Over there.
Tell us about the motorbike. Who owns it? Where is it now? And did you all have a go on it?
Well, I certainly did have a go on it, but I wouldn't know where it was now.
But it's also that is a bit. It turns in from a Harley Davidson into a trail bike.
Yeah.
Which is you have to suspend but presumably the Harley never actually. One scene with the Harley Davidson.
I'm just watching me on that. I didn't realise the bike was
That's a you kind of have to go with that in terms of you just assume that
it morphs into a bike.
I think it was a tiny budget, presumably. So now with them, no.
Yeah, you're quite right. That's a big flaw in the film, yeah.
Didn't you ever thought that?
No one's ever pointed it out before. No one's ever pointed that out, but probably they're thinking it.
It's a big hole. It's a massive. It takes you right out of the picture, and I think it's kind of charming, but it is a fuck up.
Yes, sorry.
Any other questions or objections to raise for Peter or Alexei? I want to just ask, we're going to watch Bad News Tour in a moment, and Bad News obviously is one of those comic strips that kind of ended up becoming bigger and bigger because you obviously did your follow-up, but you also produced an album, you performed in a massive show with Black Sabbath and other people. Can you just tell us a little bit about that whole experience of being part of Bad News?
Adrian, one of the ideas we pitched to Channel 4, apart from Fucking Man, one of the earlier ones, was to do about a band, and Adrian wrote a very good script about a wannabe heavy metal band that's really pretty crap, and they fall out, or they fall apart. And somehow it struck a chord, and it became, I think, something that we thought we could go back to, and he wrote more Bad News. And in this one, we go and play at Castle Donington in front of 70,000 people, which we did, and we hadn't played a single gig in front of anybody until we played 70,000 people with 3 or 4 cameras filming it, which is what was on the film, beginning and end. And from that, I think EMI said, would you like to do an album? We'll pay you £250,000. With Brian May producing it. And then we did a UK tour, and it was like just the whole thing just got out of hand. We ended up having rows that were like the ones in the film that we were taking. The other thing was that there was a scene in there, which everybody thinks is very funny, was in the More Bad News, we find out that the catering bill he said, Rick said, do you know how much that catering's costing us? Everyone's eating our food and we're paying for it. So we just can't knock everybody out of the way and go and finish all the food. When we worked at Trevor Horn Studios, we got a bill for £50,000 for catering. It was like life copying art.
And is it right that Rick couldn't play an instrument, for example?
Rick was good at falling over and posing and stuff. But you heard very little bass coming through the speakers.
And the missiles that were kind of thrown at you on stage,
bottles of
they were all real.
Bottles of piss, I mean, it really was
what troop as you were.
It was snuff comedy we were on to really.
And when you look back and you consider that role of Spiderweb in Bad News, is that one of the ones that you kind of rate amongst the higher in terms of as one that you enjoyed doing?
I did enjoy doing Spider because I was petrified, having not done the young ones with Rick and Aid and Nigel. Because I really thought in hindsight I would never have found a character, but magically when I was putting on this wig and cypress, I went, I'm Pete Trill. was this guy who used to play the harmonica in a band I was in. I said, how did Pete speak? And instantly I got his character, and that was Spider, and it was very fun to play it after that, you know, because I knew who I was. You know.
And Alexei, when you look back at the roles that you played in the comic strip, I think, you know, like 3 of the ones that we talked about earlier tonight, and this one are actually kind of along some of the lines. When you look back, is the one that you feel most fondly about in terms of your?
I mean, probably that one in a way. Paul in in the Strike, I think is probably the most. It's the furthest away from, you know, the kind of the performance that I was often expected to give. So I think that's probably the subtlest.
I think your very best is Red Nose and Courage. It's a wonderful performance, and I'd love to show that again.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay.
He plays
and the copper in Supergrass. I mean, he's also got a kind of another storyline, hasn't he?
He follows them. He wants to be an undercover.
He wants to be a detective. Yeah.
So how do I get into plain clothes? Listen, I don't know. I can't help you.
Yeah, it's definitely time for Supergrass to get another egg, isn't it?
Yeah, all that way.
Maybe you could just we could do something down there.
Maybe I could. Maybe it's a talk where I spoke. Well, I think unless you have anything else to say, we're going to move on and watch Bad News Tour, I think. Yep, let's do that. Big thank you to Peter Richardson.